ಸಂಸಾರದಾವ ನಲಲಿದ ಲೋಕ ತ್ರಣಯ ಕಾರುಣ್ಯ ಗಣ ಗಣತ್ವಂ ಸಂಸಾರದಾವ ನಲಲಿದ ಲೋಕ ತ್ರಣಯ ಕಾರುಣ್ಯ ಗಣ ಗಣತ್ವಂ ಪ್ರಾಪ್ತಸ್ಯ ಕಲ್ಯಾಣ ಗುಣನವಸ್ಯ ವಂದೇ ಗುರೋ ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣಾರವಿಂದಂ महाप्रभु कीर्तन नित्य गीता वादित्रमाद्यान् मनसुरसेना रोमाञ्चकं पाशुतरङ्गभाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् श्रीविग्रहाराधन नित्यनाना शृङ्गारतन्मन्तिरमार्जनाद युक्तस्य भक्तांश्च नियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् चतुर्विधा श्री भगवत्प्रसादो स्वादन तृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घम् कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् क्षीरादिका माधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना प्रदीक्षणा स्वादनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् निकुञ्जयूनो रतिकेलिसेदै यायालिभिर्युक्तिरपेक्षणीया तत्रादिदाक्षादतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् साक्षादरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तदा भायत एव सद्भिः किन्तु प्रभुर्या प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि दायं स्तुवं तस्य यस्य स्त्रीसन्ध्या वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् 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 नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी प्रासता इति नामिने सरस्वती देवी जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासवतरिंदा जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर गौर भक्तरिंदा Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nila Madhav Shri Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Mayi. Jaya Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल नमस्ते नरसिंहाय प्रह्लादलाददायिने हिरण्यकाशिपूर्वक्षः शीलटङ्कानखालाये इतो नरसिंह परतो नरसिंह यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंह बहि नरसिंह हृदये नरसिंह नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे तव करकमलवरे नाखाम् अद्भुतशृङ्गां दरिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गम् केशवद्रीता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवधृता नरे हरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय प्रहलाद महाराज की जय
विष्णु भक्ति प्रति देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः श्रीवृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रति देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः श्रीवृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रति देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः वृंदादेवी तुलसी महारानी की जय
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namaha Radha Krishna Seva Pabo Abhilasi Radha Krishna Seva Pabo Abhilasi Yetomara Sharanaloy Taravancha Punahoy Kripa kori korotare Vrindavana vasi. Moe apilas, vilas kunje diovas. Vilas kunje diovas. Nayane heribo sada, yugala rupa rasi. Eni vedanadharo Sakiranugata koro Seva adhikaradhiye Koro nije dasi. Dina Krishna dase ko e namora hoy. Dina Krishna dase ko e namora hoy. Shri Radha Govinda preme sadhaye nabasi. Shri Radha Govinda preme sadhaye nabasi. Shri Radha Govinda preme sadhaye nabasi. Yani kani cha papani brahmachari kani cha tani tani prana shanti pradakshina pade pade. Yani kani cha papani brahmachari kani cha tani tani prana shanti pradakshina pade pade. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Tuse, Jaya Tuse, Jaya Tuse, Jaya Tuse. Jaya Vrinde, Jaya Vrinde, Jaya Vrinde, Jaya Vrinde. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Shri Vendayai Tulsi Devai Priyayai Kesavai Sacha Vishnu Bhakti Pradideve Satcharatai Namo Namaha. Shri Vrindayai Tulsi Devai Priyayai Kesavai Sacha Vishnu Bhakti Pradideve Satcharatai Namo Namaha. Shri Vrindayai Tulsi Devai Priyayai Kesavai Sacha Vishnu Bhakti Pradideve Satcharatai Namo Namaha. Devi ki jai.
Thus within my vision I shall behold the beautiful person Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me follower of Karha dance of the Virgin. Please give me the priest devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always swim in the love Shishi Radha and Govinda Shrimati Tulsi Maharani ki. There are 10 fences in the matter of chanting holy names that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To bless the devotees who dedicate their lives for the propagation of holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the name of the demigods Lord Shiva or Brahma to be equal to independent name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the order of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Veda literature or to pursue the Veda version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activity and strength of chanting holy name. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna one of the auspicious ritualistic activities, offering the Veda the fruited activities, karma, ganda. 9. To instruct a faceless person about the glory of the holy name. 10. To not come in your understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us have a most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just as thy trees who can fulfill to everyone. They are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Jeto Darpanamarjanam Bhavamahadavagni Nirvapanam Shriya Gairava Vitaranam Vidyavatu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnarmita Sadhanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuta Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra pita niyamita smaranena kalaha etadishi tavakripa bhagavan mamapi durudevami disham yaha janina nurakaha trinatapi sunijena tarorapi sahishnuna amanina manatena kirtaniya sata harihi na thanam na chanam na sundarim kavitam vajagadisha kamaye Mama Jammani Jammanishware Bhavata Bhaktir Haituki Tvai Ayinanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Sthitaduri Satisham Vichintaya Nayanam Garadashuru Daraya Vadanam Gadgada Rudaya Gira Pulaka Nichitam Mapurukada Tava Nama Grahane Bhavishati Yuga itam nimishena chakshusha pravisha itam shunya itam jagat sarvam govinda virahe name ashirishava padaratam pinnashtumam adarsanam marmahatam karotuva yatha tatha va vitatatu lampato matprananatastu se eva naparaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Glory to Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which connects the heart of all that does accumulate for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated births and deaths. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because where the rays of benediction moon, it is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enable us to fully taste the nectar for which always anxious. Oh my Lord, all the kindness you hundreds millions of names of Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names have all transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, all the kindness enable us to easily approach it by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking himself lower than a straw in the street. One should be more taller than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Sanhamarjananda, I am an eternal servitor, yet somehow I fall into the ocean, birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me at once at the lotus feet. Oh, my Lord, while my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant the holy name, while my voice choke up, while hair my body stand and a recitation of your name. Oh, Govinda, feeling on separation, I'm considered a moment to be like a great millennium. Tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken heart by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipable Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastra. Shri Mangala Aarti prayers ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurung Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padang Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Dinamine Namaste Sarasate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachate Desha Tarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Dinamine Shri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitaya Kripaptaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayine Prabhavin Namaha Madhuryo Chala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktita Shri Gaurakarna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinadarine Rupanuga Virudapa Siddhanta Dvanta Harine Namo Gaurakishoraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padam Bojayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Virbhava Bhumistwan Nirdishta Sajanapriya Vaishnava Sava Bhaumaushi Jaganathaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhishcha Kripa Sindhu Pihevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha Panta Tattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakham Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinapanto Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Srato Pangor Mamamanda Matirkati Masarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divya Dvindaranya Kalpadrimadaha Shrimad Ranakara Singhasanasto Shrimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prishtaripi Sevemano Smarami Shriman Rasarasarambi Vamsi Vata Tatastita Karsham Vinusaner Gopir Gopinata Shri Yestunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Dadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadi Radha Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Satmasuka Paviksha Lakshariteshu Surabhira Bipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Shata Sampramasai Vimanam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Venum Konantam Aravinda Dalayadaksham Parharvatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kantarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pachami Alola Chandraka Lasavanamadevam Shri Ranangadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalitam Yata Prakasham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pachami Anganyasya Sakalendra Vitimanti Pashanti Panti Karayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananta Chinmaya Satujala Vigrahasya Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achotam Anadi Mananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedesho Durapam Aturapam Atma Bhakto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Shatavasara Samprakamyo Vayurathapi Manaso Munipangavanam Sopyasti Yat Prapada Simya Vichinta Tattve Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pachami Ekopya Sora Chaitum Jagatanta Kotim Yachaktirasti Jagatanta Chayayadanta Antantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pachami Yad Bhava Pavitadiyo Manujastateva Samprapya Rupa Mahimasana Yana Bhusha Suktaryam Eva Nikama Patitai Stuvanti Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Ananta Chimmarasa Patipavitapi Starpeya Eva Nijaruptaya Kalapi Goloka Eva Nivasate Kalatma Bhuto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Premanjana Churta Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadeva Hidayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundam Achintya Guna Swarupam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Shukalanya Mena Tishtan Nanavataram Akaro Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Soyam Samabhava Parama Pumam Yogo Vindamadi Purusham Tamham Pajami.
Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desire, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock's feather, with the figure of beauty tinged with hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers beautified with the moon locket, whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Shamasundara is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of the transcendental figure possesses in himself the full fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, he is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha, yet is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe, at one and at the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore. I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men, who are imbued with devotion, sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities, in the company of her confident Sakhis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shamasundara, Krishna himself with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts, with the eye of devotion tinged with salve of love. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Rama, Nrisimha, Vamana, etc., as his subjective portions. Hare.
Hare Krishna, worship Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shrimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati Satarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Guru Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 9, verse number 7. Okay, so anybody can read? Yes.
Translation.
Yes.
O my Lord, persons who are bereft of the all auspicious performance of chanting and hearing about your transcendental activities are certainly unfortunate and are also bereft of good sense. They engage in inauspicious activities, enjoying sense gratification for a very little while. Purport. The next question is why people are against such auspicious activities as chanting and hearing the glories and pastimes of the Lord, which can bring total freedom from the cares and anxieties of material existence. The only answer to this question is that they are unfortunate because of supernatural control due to their offensive activities performed simply for the sake of sense gratification. The Lord's pure devotees, however, take compassion upon such unfortunate persons and, in a missionary spirit, try to persuade them into the line of devotional service. Only by the grace of pure devotees can such unfortunate men be elevated to the position of transcendental service.
Very nice. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. Number 8.
Can I read?
Huh?
I want to read.
Yeah, you can read.
O great actor, my lord, all these poor creatures are constantly perplexed by hunger, thirst, severe cold, secretion and bile, attacked by coughing winter, blasting summer, rains, and many other disturbing elements, and overwhelmed by strong sex urges and indefatigable anger, I take pity on them, and I am very much aggrieved for them. Purport. A pure devotee
So
of the...
this is Brahma that's speaking. Go ahead.
A pure devotee of the Lord, like Brahma, and persons in his disciple
Disciplic succession.
in his disciplic succession are always unhappy to see the perplexities of the conditioned souls who are suffering the onslaughts of the threefold miseries which pertain to body and mind, to the disturbance of material nature, and to many others such material disadvantages, not knowing adequate measures for relieving such difficulties. Suffering persons sometimes pose themselves as leaders of the people, and the unfortunate followers are put into further disadvantages under such so-called leadership. This is like a blind man's leading another blind man to fall into a ditch. Therefore, unless the devotees of the Lord take pity on them and teach them the right path, their lives are hopeless failures. The devotees of the Lord who voluntarily take the foolish responsibility of raising
who voluntarily take the responsibility. There's no foolish.
Responsibility of raising the foolish materialistic sense enjoyers are
As
are as confidential to the Lord as Lord Brahma.
yeah, very good, very good. Thank you for reading like that. All right, we'll go to the next one. These are all very important verses that explain
Hare Krishna.
the dilemma, the problem of the people in the age of Kali. Go ahead.
Translation. O my Lord, the material miseries are without factual existence for the soul. Yet, as long as the conditioned soul sees the body as meant for sense enjoyment, he cannot get out of the entanglement of material miseries, being influenced by your external energy. Purport. The whole trouble of the living entity in material existence is that he has an independent conception of life. He is always dependent on the rules of the Supreme Lord, in both the conditioned and liberated states. But by the influence of the external energy, the conditioned soul thinks himself independent of the supremacy of the personality of Godhead. His constitutional position is dovetail himself with the desire of the supreme will, but as long as he does not do so, he is sure to drag on in the shackles of material bondage. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 2.55, Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Bharda Manogatan. He has to give up all sorts of plans manufactured by mental concoction. The living entity has to dovetail himself with the supreme will. That will help him to get out of the entanglement of material existence.
Very good. So we'll go back again to number 7. Where it says, "Oh my Lord, persons who are bereft." Bereft means they're missing. They don't possess something. Bereft of all auspiciousness. Performance of chanting and hearing almost about your transcendental activities are certainly unfortunate and are also bereft of good senses. They engage in inauspicious activities, enjoying sense gratification for a very little while. This is a profound verse. Why? Because they are bereft of all auspicious performance of chanting and hearing about your transcendental activities. What are we doing every morning? We are chanting and hearing about Krishna's transcendental activities. So this is all auspiciousness. This is all good. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. So this is what we're doing every day. Why? Because this is what he says here is most auspicious. It's all auspicious. In other words, it's all good. It's all going to bring blessings on us because we're doing the right thing. Instead of chanting and hearing about politics, chanting and hearing about sports, chanting and hearing about making money and things like that, we're chanting and hearing about the transcendental activities of the Lord. People who don't do this are unfortunate, and they unnecessarily suffer in the material world. And they engage in what's called inauspicious activities, meat eating, gambling, etc., and enjoying sense gratification for a very little while. Okay, so in the purport it says why people are against such auspicious activities as chanting and hearing the glories and pastimes of the Lord, which can bring total freedom from the cares and anxieties of the material existence. In other words, it can solve all the problems of people. So why are they against doing it if it's so beneficial for them? So this is a very important question that Prabhupada's asking. And Prabhupada says the only answer to this question is that they are unfortunate because of supernatural control due to their offensive activities performed simply for the sake of sense gratification. So, when people become addicted to sense gratification, and that happens pretty quickly, it starts even from the birth of a child and goes through all the years of schooling and bad association that they have. And then they become convinced that purpose of life is to make money and then spend it for sense gratification and spend most of their time going to parties and going and drinking wine and liquor and engaging in all kinds of sense gratifications. This is a tragedy because it's ruining people's lives. And they don't understand why. Well, it's explained here. The reason why is that they're against the auspicious activities such as chanting and hearing the glories and pastimes of the Lord, which can bring total freedom from the cares and anxieties of material existence. In other words, all the problems people are feeling, and there are a lot, can be mitigated or can be solved or purified by this hearing and chanting. So, there's some very interesting statistics here. And it says, more than 1 in 5 U.S. adults live with a mental illness. Okay, so it says, over 1 in 5 youths ages 13 to 18, either currently or at some point during their life, have had seriously debilitating mental illnesses. About 1 in 25 U.S. adults live with a serious mental illness, such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or major depression. That means there's about over 50 million people in the United States that have what you would call a mental disease right now. Then it says, what is the number one mental illness? Depression. Depression is impacting an estimated 300 million people in the United States. Depression is the most common mental disorder and generally affects women more often than men. So here we have 2 statistics. One is people who have some kind of mental disorder, 1 in 5 people. It's about 50 million people. And then 2, what is the most, what is the number 1 mental illness? And that is depression. And that is affecting 300 million people. Now, these are astronomical statistics. We're not making them up. You just go on the internet, you'll see it right now. Right? So, this verse is pertinent to those people. Prabhupada says, why people are against such auspicious activities as chanting and hearing the glories and pastimes of the Lord, which can bring total freedom from the cares and anxieties of material existence. The only answer to this question is that they are unfortunate because of supernatural control due to their offensive activities performed simply for the sake of sense gratification. Now, what does that mean exactly? Supernatural control. It's talking about the devas, especially Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. Brahma controls the mode of passion. Shiva controls the mode of ignorance, and Vishnu controls the mode of goodness. These are supernatural beings who control supernatural forces of goodness, passion, and ignorance that control the activities of people. So, and why are they subject to these supernatural forces? Because they're engaged in sense gratification. This is very important information to have if you want to be free of this unnecessary suffering in material life. But instead of getting this information and understanding it, people are learning how to enjoy or try to enjoy sense gratification. Now, there are certain rules of nature or laws of nature that prohibit people from enjoying sense gratification. So if we look in the 5th chapter, we read this the other day, but we'll read it again. 5th chapter, 22nd verse, it says, therefore, those who are true yogis or learned transcendentalists are not attracted by sense pleasures, which are the causes of continuous material existence. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. That's a law of nature. And in 3rd chapter, 39th verse, it says, 3rd chapter, 39th verse, three. It says, therefore, this lust is the simple symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within the material world. While one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually that so-called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer. So here we have two major statements. One is a law of nature, and the other is a fact. The law of nature is that if one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he's entrapped by material miseries. In other words, misery will always follow material sense gratification. Number two is that the little bit of happiness people feel from sense gratification is the ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer. Why? Because that little bit of sense pleasure that they experience convinces them that they will continue to engage in sense gratification to get that little bit of pleasure. So that means it's their biggest enemy, because it's forcing them to make the same mistake over and over and over again, right up to the point of death. So one time, there was a sadhu who was speaking to a king, and he said that a person who is a sense gratifier, right up to the point of death, he will think of sense gratification. And the king said, "What? No, I can't believe that. Right up to the point of death?" He said, "Yes." He said, "No." He said, "No, you come with me, I'll show you." So the sadhu took the king to a man's house, and that man was on the verge of dying. And he told the king, "Bring your daughter." And he had a very beautiful daughter. She was nicely dressed and everything. So they go to see this man who's about to die. And when they enter the room where the man is in bed, the daughter is standing next to the king, and they walk right next to the man, and they're looking at him. And then the man sees the daughter, and with his last energy, he tries to touch her with his hand like that, and he dies. So when the king saw that, he was shocked. He said, "Oh my God." He said, right up to the moment of death, the last thing, he's trying to touch her. Right? So what the sadhu said was true. Even up until the moment of death, the people who have been addicted to sense gratification their whole life will still be thinking of sense gratification at the moment of death. What do you think happens to them? They go right into an animal body. You know. So these are amazing points, and they're right here in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so now we have these statistics. 1 in 5 people in this country has a mental illness. That's like 50 million people. And they're giving them drugs. They don't say drugs, they say meds, medicines. Right? You ever hear that? Meds? Yeah. They don't want to say drugs. They say, well, would you like to have the meds? Right? But those meds are drugs, and they're synthetic drugs, most of them. And they make things worse. They give you some relief, but they make things worse in the long term. Because they're only masking the symptoms. They don't heal the symptoms. Right? Okay. Then it says, the Lord's pure devotees, however, take compassion upon such unfortunate persons, and in a missionary spirit, try to persuade them into the line of devotional service. Only by the grace of pure devotees can such unfortunate men be elevated to the position of transcendental service. So that's what we are trying to do. Now you see, they brought in the new panel, but they left the old one there. And they put the new one behind these chairs so it can become broken by people sitting in the chairs and leaning against the panel. There you go. Okay. That's good enough for now. We'll change it in a little while later on. Okay, that's good. Very good. Take that other one away. I never want to see it again. Okay. So, what is, see now, the Christians, they also preach, the Muslims, they also preach, the Hindus, they preach, the Jains, they preach, the Sikhs, they preach, and we also preach. What is our message different than the others? Yes. How does it differ? We have the full knowledge of scientific spiritualism. They have partial knowledge of scientific spiritualism. So, whatever they're doing, it can have some benefit, definitely. However, what we are doing, it can have complete benefit if we are trained properly. So, we analyze the problem, And then we give the complete solution. The other religions analyze partially the problem and give an incomplete solution. And because of that, what they're doing is helpful in some ways and misleading in other ways. Like, for example, if I tell you, give up illicit sex. Okay. But then I tell you, but it's okay to eat meat. Now, what did I do? I gave something that is correct. And on the other hand, I gave something that's completely wrong, but I'm presenting it as something correct. So, therefore, that type of teaching is incomplete, and it doesn't solve the problem. Right? So this is what's happening. There are other religions, they're preaching this way, that way. They're all engaged in telling you to do something and not do something else. Right? But the things they're telling you to do, some of them are wrong. And therefore, it doesn't solve the problem for the people. So it says, the Lord's pure devotees, however, take compassion upon such unfortunate persons, and in a missionary spirit, try to persuade them into the line of devotional service. Only by the grace of pure devotees can such unfortunate men be elevated to the position of transcendental service. So obviously the solution to the problem is transcendental service without any misconceptions, such as meat eating is all right, such as the animals don't have a soul, therefore it's okay to kill them and eat them, and things like that. Okay, are there any questions? Now we have the definite statistics. 1 in 5 people in the United States has a mental illness. 300 million people in the United States have depression, which is the most prevalent mental illness. So these are real statistics, and people are suffering because of these things unnecessarily. But if they would just get this taste for hearing and chanting about the Lord, and especially doing Harinam Sankirtan and taking prasadam, etc., their problems would go away overnight, especially if they give up the 4 destructive habits: meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and intoxication. Okay. Are there any questions?
Maharaj, one quick question. Why Krishna is not making simple for everyone to come near to him? Because why is because everybody are trapped in this Maya.
What?
Everybody are why the material senses are taking domination over Krishna.
Well, Krishna has made it very simple. What are you talking about?
But everyone, nobody is having lot of in materialist world. They don't have a knowledge, Maharaj. That's the main thing. The mass media everywhere, it's really dominating.
We're not preaching enough. That's why. We're not instructing people enough. You see, this is why. We're not doing our job effectively of presenting Krishna consciousness to the public. And that's why I'm going over these things very carefully now. Just like you're not very familiar with these panels, although they've been there for like months. Why don't you just read them? The whole solution is there. You see? And we have statistics. What do the karmis do? For everything they give statistics. 1 in 5 people in the United States has a mental illness. The most prevalent mental illness is depression. And there's 300 million people that suffer from depression in the United States. That's why the pharmaceutical companies are selling so many meds. Meds mean medicines. Were you getting medicine from your doctor? Huh? Did the medicines work? Huh?
We will take, that's it.
So you see, you're part of the system. And the system gives you a little bit of relief, but it doesn't solve the problem. And that's programmed to be like that. Why? Because if they give you a medicine that solves the problem immediately, they can't make money with that. Right? So they have to give you some medicine that you have to take for the rest of your life. Like say you have diabetes. And they give you a medicine you have to take for the rest of your life. They don't give you a medicine, you take it once and everything's finished and you're healthy. Because they can't make money like that. So they don't have an interest to have a medicine like that. They want to give you a medicine that you have to take for the rest of your life. You see? So, therefore, there's been some people that say, look, the medical system we have now is not good. Because doctors only make money when someone is sick. Let's change the system. Doctors are only paid when a person is healthy. They don't get paid if the person is sick. Now they have the incentive to keep the person healthy. Whereas the system we have now, they only make money when someone is sick. Therefore, they don't have a real incentive to heal the people. They want to do things that partially heal the people and gets them hooked on medicines that they're manufacturing for the rest of their life. So, therefore, if we change the system and say, we only pay the doctors as long as we're healthy, and their purpose is to keep us healthy. Right now, they get paid money when we're sick. So there's no incentive for them to keep us healthy. So, will that solve all the problems? No. What'll solve the problems is people give up sense gratification and take up sense purification. That would solve the problem. Because we're controlled by supernatural forces, goodness, passion, and ignorance, by supernatural beings, Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. Okay. So, are there any more questions? So we only read 3 verses today, but all those verses are very, very important. You have any questions on verse 8 and 9? Okay, let's read 8 and 9 again.
Okay, Maharaj. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.9.8, translation by Prabhupada. O great actor, my lord, all these poor creatures are constantly perplexed by hunger, thirst, severe cold, secretion, and bile, attacked by coughing winter, blasting summer, rains, and many other disturbing elements, and overwhelmed by strong sex urges and indefatigable
anger.
anger. I take pity on them and I am very much aggrieved for them.
This is the feeling of a genuine devotee. Therefore, you must do something to help these people. Go ahead.
Purport by Prabhupada. A pure devotee of the Lord like Brahma and person in his disciplical succession are
And
always
persons in his
in persons in his disciplical disciplic succession are always unhappy to see the perplex,
perplexities
perplexities of the conditioned souls who are suffering the onslaughts of the threefold miseries which pertain to the body and mind.
So the threefold miseries are Adhyatmika, Bhautika, Devika. Miseries of this body, miseries caused by other bodies, and miseries caused by natural cataclysmic events like hurricanes and tornadoes and things like that, earthquakes. Go ahead.
To the disturbances of material nature and to many other such material disadvantages. Not knowing adequate measures for relieving such difficulties, suffering persons sometimes put themselves as leaders of the people, and the unfortunate followers are put into further disadvantages under such so-called leadership. This is like a blind man's leading another blind man to fall into a ditch. Therefore, unless the devotees of the Lord take pity on them and teach them the right path, their lives are hopeless failures.
See, unless we do something, all these people are going to fail. We have to have some feelings that this is a terrible situation for people that are suffering like this. We have to do something about it. We have to go on Sankirtan. We have to preach. We have to help people. Go ahead.
The devotees of the Lord who voluntarily take the responsibility of raising the foolish materialistic sense enjoyers are as confidential to the Lord as Lord Brahma.
So if you voluntarily take the responsibility of helping these foolish, unfortunate sense enjoyers, you become a confidential servant of the Lord on the same level as Lord Brahma. Whoa. Oh. We should think about what he just said there. That's a huge statement. You see? These are big statements that he's making. We should take this seriously. Okay, let's read number 9 and then we'll stop. You should be thinking about this all day today. These 3 verses, especially what we just read now, the second one. Go ahead.
Yeah, next verse, 3.9.9, translation. O my Lord, the material miseries are without factual existence for the soul. Yet, as long as the conditioned soul sees the body as meant for sense enjoyment, he cannot get out of entanglement of material miseries, being influenced by your external energy. Purport. The whole trouble of the living entity in material existence is that he has an independent conception of life. He is always dependent.
He has his own hodgepodge nonsense theories and doesn't pay attention to what Krishna says. Go ahead. Just like I had an uncle. So one time this uncle came to see me and we were sitting down and talking, and he asked me, what is this thing you are doing? So I explained a little bit about Krishna consciousness, especially about, meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, intoxication. So he said, wait a minute. He said, I'm going to tell you something. He said, one time there was a discussion of great philosophers, and they wanted to understand what is a real idiot. And after discussing for a long time, they came to the following conclusion. A real idiot, a real fool, is someone who does not eat meat, does not have illicit sex, does not take intoxication, and does not gamble. He said, that is the real fool. You're looking at me right now. I said that. Then I realized, my uncle is completely lost. There's not much I'm going to be able to do with him because he's very adamant. And this is a true story. He purposely said that. So here we are. What does Prabhupada say here? It says that not knowing adequate measures for relieving such difficulties, suffering persons sometimes pose themselves as leaders of the people. That's my uncle. And the unfortunate followers are put into further disadvantages under such so-called leadership. This is like a blind man leading another blind man to fall into a ditch. Therefore, unless the devotees of the Lord take pity on them and teach them the right path, their lives are hopeless failures. The devotees of the Lord who voluntarily take the responsibility of raising the foolish, materialistic sense enjoyers are as confidential to the Lord as Lord Brahma. This is huge statements. Now, we read it once, and now we went over it and read it twice. Did you get more understanding the second time? We could read it a third time tomorrow. We'll get even more understanding. You see how profound Prabhupada's writing is. We shouldn't just read and say, oh yeah, I read this already, I understand. No, we don't understand anything. These are huge statements that he's making. Okay, we'll stop right there. If there are no more questions, then we'll do Guru Puja in a few minutes. Okay. So now, let's see. You can do a little homework for tomorrow. I looked up these two statistics. 1 in 5 people have mental problems, and then 300 million, that's like 50 million people, and then 300 million people have depression. So look up the mental illness and depression and see if there's more information or more statistics they can get. Okay. Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Glory to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Whoever doesn't eat meat doesn't have the
అక్కడ టైమింగ్ ఇదే అయినట్టుంది టైమింగ్ చేంజ్ అయింది యాక్టివ్గా లేరు అలా కనిపించేస్తుంది ఎంత మనం చేసినా కళ్ళు కనిపించదు